our lecture on Business Process Management Advanced. This is the last lecture on the topic of Business Process Management. This is the lecture where we're closing this block, and then next week we're moving on to a new topic. We will spend the first 45 minutes today going through one important aspect relating to business process management, implementation of an ERP system, and then the second half of the lecture doing exercises in creating our own business process management, business models. So what is an ERP system? It is a set of integrated programs that manage a company's vital business operation for entire multi-site global organization. So the emphasis is on here that the business processes of an organization are automated, and I will keep standing here to allow the students to freely walk in, that I'm not in their way. And the basic important aspect is the common central database. So the any ERP implementation removes any systems that are spread across the organization and all combines them into one central database that allows different departments to access the data, because they then all connected with the database. And what's the benefit of having one common database? Information entered there is accessible to all participants in the organization. Information that gets updated there is accessible. You don't hold data records multiple times, and that saves not only mistakes or prevents mistakes in data, in working with the data, delivering parcels, selling out, sales invoices sent to wrong address, but it also means reduced storage capacity. So that diagram illustrates it nicely. Here you have an organization, and those yellow discs illustrate the ERP system, or the systems in each department. You see some departments even have multiple systems, and each of those, none of those systems is integrated. Each of those systems is a standalone application, and when changes are made in one application, it doesn't mean changes are triggering through to the other systems. Once you implement an ERP system, you have only one database, much easier to manage, and information and data is held only once. ERP system providers or enterprise software. ERP systems are one example of an enterprise system. Enterprise systems, and one example is an ERP system. They claim that their software includes or enables companies to use industry-proven best practices once they're implementing their software. And what I want you to do is to have to think about why this is the case. So please spend the next 2 or 3 minutes in talking with your neighbor and identifying or thinking about ways why an enterprise software or an ERP system would enable an organization to use best practices. I will turn off the recording that you don't need to sit there waiting. So what is the answer? Why is it so that when you implement an ERP system in your company, you get best practice business processes? What's the answer? So what did you just talk about? Did you talk about what you're doing in the weekend? It was very actively a discussion, but now you look at me like, oh God, what's she talking about? So what did you just talk about, yes?
By improving the efficiency.
Yes, you improve the efficiency, but why is it the case?
Because departments put their
Yes.
So every employee in this company can get the information they need immediately.
Yes. It's maybe too simple. The answer is that ERP vendors, so those companies that sell ERP systems, put a lot of time, effort, research into developing their ERP system based on knowledge on how to do certain business processes. So ERP vendors conduct a lot of research with organizations, with companies in the field to identify what is best practice to do a business process. And that knowledge flows then into their software. So the software, ERP software, is developed where the requirements represent the best way, so industry-proven best practice ways to conduct business processes. And then by definition, when you take a system that has been developed based on best practice and you implement it in your company, then you are having best practice business processes. Because it should be very clear to any member of a company, any decision maker, any user of an ERP system, that the decision for an ERP system from which company you go or take your ERP system from, that this decision is very challenging to revert or to reverse. The ERP system and the company get very tightly connected with each other. So the ERP system changing, please find a different seat, please keep those empty. Thank you. Those systems are, the company changes their business processes to ensure the company changes the way how they do business to align the way how they do business with the system. Because eventually the technology supports a company in doing business, and if they have done manually the process differently, but have now a system, they need to change the way how they conduct their business, opting in how the system wants it. So you cannot maintain a different process than what the system tells you to. And that's why the decision for an ERP system is such an important one. So the answer for that question was here all the time. Enterprise software uses predefined processes that require a business to adapt itself to the software. So you're not changing the software that it matches your business, it's the other way around. The processes have been created by the software manufacturer or the vendor based on industry-proven best practice. The processes are difficult to modify because the software is so complex. There is tailoring possible. So yes, on the advertisements by ERP providers, they keep saying you can tailor specific applications, but the tailoring is still very narrowly. So you can only tailor certain aspects. You cannot tailor the business processes as such. ERP systems are around for quite some time, 1970s, so those systems are older than most of you. They started with basic components to operate a system, HR function, human resources, that's the HR function, accounting and finance, and the production and production planning systems. So those modules that allowed a company to operate. But over time, new technologies emerged, and over time, new modules were offered by ERP providers, and they are so-called extended ERP components. You see an e-business functionality where the company can plug in a web shop, allowing customers to access the database, that common database in the middle, identifying if products are available, identifying how much products are cost, or the business intelligence, business analytics features that allow companies to use or utilize the data in the common database to make business decisions. So the extended ERP components are almost a historical addition or historical artifact of advancements in technology. There are certain benefits, there are a number of benefits associated with the introduction of an ERP system. At the same time, there are a number of risks. And despite that the known risk of implementing an ERP system, companies still go ahead with implementing those systems. Because the benefits outweigh the negative side, and even more so, companies can take a careful approach in planning to address the negative side. So it is not surprising that ERP systems are expensive and timely to implement, because as I've shown you earlier, eventually they're replacing most of the systems a company has. And by replacing a system, you need to make sure that the data from the old system is transferred to the new system. And this is not a copy and paste as you would move two folders in the system. This is a challenging operation. And therefore, companies need to consider a longer time frame, even for their own planning, that the ERP provider would suggest to ensure the successful completion of an introduction or an upgrade of an ERP system. I'm sure you all have done the homework of a project that did not go so well. We will look at this in a couple of minutes, but this is a very nice illustration of the failures that are related to introduction of ERP systems, and in this particular case, a very costly introduction. Risk of using one vendor, what does it mean? I mentioned before that it's very difficult to remove an ERP system from your organization once you have implemented it and are using it for some years. And that means if you or the company better changes their mind and would like to have a different ERP system, this is almost impossible. Yes, of course it can be done technically, but it is almost impossible to take out one ERP system and put a new ERP system in. And so this risk then of course means you have to make a careful decision which company you go with, and most often companies that want an ERP system go the safe option and take a large vendor like SAP to implement their software, because SAP, different than smaller companies, let's say a local Brisbane-based company that developed an ERP system just for the mining industry, but they have only 25 employees. The likelihood that SAP will be closed and not supporting their ERP system is very small. While if you take a local ERP vendor for ERP systems, compiled just to extend that idea of engineers and developers that worked at mining companies in Australia, and they have the perfect ERP system for a mining company. It has all the business processes you wanted, it can be tailored, but still, management still might go with SAP just for the risk that this small company, that small vendor here in Brisbane might go bankrupt, and then they have no support for the ERP system they implemented. I have a video here, 2 questions. Joel, that's the gentleman here, manager, needed to be convinced about installing an ERP system, or was he on board right from the beginning? And I guess why would he hesitate to support it and be euphoric about it? And then please note down what are improvements that were possible with the new ERP system. So what benefits did it bring to have that ERP system in place? So This video was a true, one more light, there was very representative of a lot of things that happened in decisions in meeting rooms, and I'm not exaggerating when I say you will in your career meet people that take credit for activities you have done, like Joel took the credit here for initiating the ERP system while it was Sharon's idea. So did he need convincing, or who needed convincing? Was he on board at the beginning? Was he on board right from the beginning? And why do you think he was not on board? It was expensive, so he thought maybe it's a waste of money, we don't need it. What else?
The time that has to go into doing it.
Yes, so he thought people could do better things in that time, yes?
He was not sure if it would work.
If it would work, exactly.
He had no idea for the potential benefits to the company either.
Yes, exactly. And this is just reiterating why I'm telling you that you're not becoming similar, well-informed as he is, because he had no idea about what the system would actually provide, why it would improve efficiency and efficiency and productivity. Now I said the two key things for question number 2. How it would do this, why it would. So he just saw maybe the numbers and had been told we need a new system. And the way how he was presented was also, I'm the junior here, my grandfather founded the company, but and I have a position here, but I don't really know what's going on. When he said, oh look, I can now see what everybody is doing, I can spy on everybody in the company with the mobile app. So it gave the impression that he's not actively participating in the business and running the business, so he might not even have known about the challenges in the business process of the company. And that's why I said, oh yeah, we all knew we needed a new modern painting on the wall, so he couldn't even phrase it. So what are more detailed improvements? Operational efficiency, Sharon had mentioned it, you become more efficient in doing tasks. The example given in the video, inconsistencies in the invoices, in the information provided through the system. You can use collaboration platforms, reaching out to everybody instead of trying to look up the information in different systems that are not integrated with each other. Furthermore, you receive improved decision making because of high-level summaries of the information presented, and the information is always up to date. You've seen that example with the customer contract that was in the process to be closed. Because it hadn't been closed, profit sales were down. Once it has been, numbers increased to a higher level. So the information is always up to date, and it points to areas where the company needs to take action to address it. Customer requests for information on products, you can much faster respond to the customer and ensure either customer service repair or continuously delivery of high quality services. And finally, with the additional features for business intelligence, companies are truly able to analyze what they are doing on a real-time base, predict into the future, and as such are able to even do better in the business and increase their profitability. And again, all those features are enough for companies to implement in ERP systems. All those benefits are just too convincing that the negative side will outweigh the only thing what companies need to consider that there are negatives to it and should not be blind to the advertisement done by ERP vendors that have as their objective to sell their software. Because the case I gave you last week, still sick after 1.25 billion investments, it was partially the software, but in this particular case there was a different reason what went wrong in the tender process. I have copies, so who would like to have a copy of the case study? I gave it to you last week, but I see some faces I haven't seen here last week. Because believe me or not, even if I don't know you by name, I remember faces, which of course is then always very helpful if you come for presentation and try to convince me that you have been in class regularly. And I'm like, which class did you go to? I'll spend another couple of minutes in going through the questions again. Yeah, just hand them back to me if you're done. I just generously. So I give you a couple minutes and then we go through it. So let's get back, please. Answer to the first question. What went wrong in the project starting from the tender to the implementation? So what were reasons the system, what were reasons the system failed? So this is an example of a non-successful ERP project. What went wrong? Yes, please?
First of all, the tendering process was not unbiased, it was biased, as one of the ex-employee of IBM was in the panel board, and at the time of implementation, because of the poor governance of IBM, the project did not move perfectly, and 85,000 workers went unpaid, and some of the employees were overpaid in 2010.
So you said bias. I would go one step further. This process was a process valuing either family bonds or bonds to former employees between an employee and former employers, more than their obligation to their current employer. This is called a conflict of interest, and that will cost, if you are getting caught up in a situation like this, your career, your reputation, and it will have legal implication if you're not disclosing any conflict of interest. So the process, what went wrong here, it was highly unethical what happened. So the IBM was given additional information and no other company was giving the additional information, and that meant IBM was able to make a better offer or more target offer than any of the competitors. Yes,
No, I was
please?
just going to ask, when it says they were given information, what sort of information would that be?
That would be either more technical information, what other systems would be implementing it. So I don't know what extra information, but it could be technical information so that they are more able to more detailed describe the functionality that is needed and say our system can do those 20 items. Our new system, the one we're proposing, compared to competitors which don't know the requirement, or it could be financial information that the budget available at that level, and that they just spend very close to the budget, because when you are getting systems where they have the requirements are similar and they're all proposing similar implementation, you go with the price and then you go with the cheapest one, or which the one is closest to what you can afford. And so if IBM was giving additional information what they want or what's a particular emphasis in the implementation, they can make it more tailored and then it looks better. And then the commission or that team tasked with implementing the system had done a poor job in defining what the requirements are. So it was not clear what the requirements are, but it didn't matter at all anyway, because the one driver in that team knew they wanted to give it to IBM because helping their former employer. This is wrong, and you need to make sure you completely and fully understand that this is wrong. Family bonds, and we've seen it again and again happening around the world, that contracts are given to a friend of a family member, and the solution is second best, and it might not be immediately punished in a court of law or by terminating employment, but it will be followed up because this system failure was very expensive, and people were held responsible. I can only caution you, as part of your personal development, to stick to the law, to hold ethics and values, moral values, very highly, and refuse or avoid any unethical behavior in your future employment. How should it be done better? Low tender prices, and that suggests that information might have been given how much money they have available. For any project should set up alarm bells. If it were a small, medium-sized enterprise, not a very large organization, what processes would you suggest the company to follow before awarding the tender? So what would you make sure is in place to avoid the same disaster as in that case study?
Is it possible to ask for a trial?
Sorry?
Is it possible to ask for a trial, maybe like, run for like a month to see how it goes before you decide on which tender to use? Or
You can't have a trial, but you might be able to ask if you can visit other companies that have implemented it, and if you can contact them, if they can give you a reference list of customers, and you can talk with the customer directly and get their opinion. So with other sites where the software has been implemented. Yes, very good. What's other solutions? What's another solution? How could you avoid that this corrupt behavior happens?
Couldn't you screen the people who are going to be on the panel? And
Yeah, wouldn't it be a good idea to do some background checks? Exactly, very good. Do some background checks and screen them thoroughly and have them signing conflict of interest policies and have them, because one thing is assuming people will act ethically, or having them signing a piece of paper saying, I do not have a conflict of interest. These are the legal implications if I have a conflict of interest. In that moment, people might say, ooh, it says here something, 25 years in prison, $20 million fines. Oh, I might disclose my conflict of interest. But if it's all in the air and not clearly communicated to your staff members, they feel like, yes, it's not really the right thing to do, but it's also not such a bad thing. So make it very clear, screen the people and make it very clear to them that this is a conflict of interest. It's I don't know, it's not a felony, I'm not a lawyer, but it's violating the law and it will be prosecuted. What else could be done? Yeah?
Could you make sure that like every company that's going to tender has as much information as possible?
Yes?
Because that was their advantage, wasn't it, in the first place?
Yes, very good. Do a thorough job in actually thinking about what your requirements are. So this is nothing you can let the part-time business school student that comes only on Friday afternoons write down a list and use this document as the tender document to make it a strategic priority in the organization to identify what the requirements of the system are, what you want, what systems are there. So you need to do, and this is not easy, a good job in identifying what you want. And that's why the suggestion from the first student was a very good one. Go and visit other companies, see how their systems are operated. And then you might realize what features you want. So these are all strategies, and then you might even get an external party, somebody not involved in your company, to do a final screening of the tender document, somebody who's completely independent. Like in that case, KPMG, that looked at the process afterwards and identified what went wrong. If they had been involved from the beginning, things might have not went wrong. And we would have 1.25 billion, not million. So for me, even 1.25 million is a lot. You might be richer than me, but $2.5 billion gone. And the system is not working. That could have been, and that's taxpayers' money. This is taxpayers' money. So this is what the hard-working Australians have created. And did they learn anything from it? One would hope, but they're still working on. So I pulled out 2 newspaper articles that suggest that we are not there yet, that the ERP system is working. They're still trying to upgrade the system. They move to a different part. They use other software. One would hope that they're not having the same fraudulent processes in place anymore. And recent newspaper articles say that by August this year, they might have a first running ERP system that ends that it is a of ERP transformation project. So they dedicated another $105 million for having a second go on the transformation project after 1.25 billion were wasted. So, and that's a different article, different source that captures that. Are there any questions to ERP systems in general, or in specific questions? Yes, please.
What's an example of like a really common one used for an accounting company, like of an ERP system?
SAP.
Yeah.
Most of
It's like
them.
mild one or something, or is
No,
that?
no, it's the SAP solution. You know SAP? No. No, it's okay. Let's do some advertisement here. It's a German company, that's why I just say with the headquarter in Walldorf. So SAP, so yes, of course they are also there in Australia. Yeah, humble roots. Let me go one actually back. And hopefully this gets a little better. So it stands for Systems, Anwendungen, Applications and Products, SAP. And a German company operates, I'm pretty sure they have sold software now to all continents, maybe not the North and South Pole, but everywhere else they're using their systems. It's a German-based company and has over 335,000 customers. So they went first with developing software or offering their software to large corporations, and then realized, well, now or more or less all large corporations around the world have our software. Let's think about modules for small or medium-sized, where certain business processes were removed. The software was not as complex because there is a difference if you run a big company, Nestle, or if you are a supermarket around the corner. And so you don't need the same system and business processes. And does it say how many employees they have? No, it doesn't say here. But so this is one of the common solutions of vendors that exist, and very successful in marketing their products. And so this is they have every solution you can think of there. Okay, if that is not the case, let's move on to the business process modeling language. Because I introduced to you last week the idea of business processes as activities or sets of activity sets, one after another, that are conducted in a company, and the whole amount of business processes represent what the company does. So today we will, with the help of my tutors, which arrive very shortly, if they haven't forgotten to be here, and it's convenient that I left my mobile phone in my office so I can't even call anybody, to get some hands-on activities done in creating our own business processes. So the way how we will model business process or represent the business process is based on the business process model and notation language, BPMN. We will do a very small sample out of the entire standard. You can look up at that link. We will draw our models today paper and pencil, or some of you might be more technology advanced and do drawings on their new iPads. But in reality, if you are a company and want to create your own business processes, you have significant tool support. So there are a number of tools out there that allow you to create business processes, and one of them is Enterprise Architect. This is the software we're using in the system analysis and design lecture to create not models there, but UML models. Not business process models, but UML models. And we will focusing on the activity, which is a task, and then representing events in the first line. But you see here, you have multiple ways to detail even further what the event is. Events are things represent things that happen instantaneously, so it is a trigger for a number of activities, and an activity is a unit of work. So an activity takes time, one event is just something happens in one moment. And events and activities, or activities and activities, are connected via a sequence flow to identify a direction and to give an order to the activities. The events are further distinguished between a start event and an end event, and you see the differences in symbols. It's small a difference, but it will illustrate or will help to, with one look at the diagram, help to distinguish between where you start and where you end with the business process. So what I would like you to do is, as a starting point, here you have a number of events and activities. Allocate them in the right order to represent the business process. Just get going. Now you have 1 minute. Bring them in the right order. What's first? You have to identify what is the event, what is an activity, and then you bring them in the right order. So what is it? What's an event? What's the start event? This one? Okay. What's next? Okay, I put them next to each other. We will talk about it. What's next? Okay. And? Okay, which one is the right one? What's the second, or what's the first activity? Board bus or buy ticket? Okay, who's for buy ticket? Who's for board bus? Okay, let me ask you all that says board bus first. What's your assumption? That you buy the ticket on the bus. But now, what is, let's say we are, and in Sydney it is really annoying, there are buses you can't buy tickets. So you all have an assumption that the tickets can be bought in the bus. Those 2 or 3 students who said buy first the ticket and go on the bus, they assume the tickets can't be bought in the bus, or it's better to buy the tickets first. And there is no information here what is the right or wrong solution. That's why when information systems are developed, either by the vendor or in-house by a company, the decision on what is the right one, should be allowed to board the bus without a ticket and buy it inside the bus, or do you request that the tickets are there right from the beginning? This needs to be negotiated with the customer. It depends on the customer is the organization that pays for the software. So if our transport organization, for example, wants to have both options included, they might have an exclusive or both, so allow both options. So you can do it this way, you can do it that way, wherever you get your ticket from. So whatever you have there, first buy tickets or first board bus, this is right. Remember we said last week, business process management is an art and a science. It's a science because there are specific rules to the description of the business process, the representation. So events are little circles, activities are little boxes, or big boxes in general, don't have to be little. But what's the first activity? This will not be a clearly identified, unambiguous thing. It would need to be a very long text if I want to make sure that you understand exactly what these steps are. Which brings me to that question I got in both lectures I did before. Now for my dear recording audience, will you test us on creating business process models where you have a text and we should create it? No, I won't. I will never ever give you a text and then tell you to create a model. This is a nightmare for marking. But what I will test you on is your knowledge on the notation, on the business process notation. Do you know that children game where you have 2 pictures and then you need to find 5 differences between the pictures? Everybody who has children knows exactly what I'm talking about. You know, find the differences. This could be, so you're not finding the differences, but I can give you a model that is wrong and say, find me 5 mistakes. So I give you a model and you need to identify mistakes. Or I give you a model and say, tell me what the symbols mean. And then you get a model and I have numbers on it. And you need to tell me what this is. So you need to know, this is an event, this is an activity, this is a gateway, this is the information I'm testing. And this is not testing your creativity in creating a business process. but it's still testing your knowledge in do you actually know what's behind BPMN is. The creation of business process models to a very detailed level, a level that would be required in your companies. This is what you learn in second semester. So next semester, if you take the class Business Process Management. So there's an entire class where you get way more hands-on activities, where you learn more, where you also do it with technology support. This is just an introduction. Okay, next slide tells you how or what to watch out when you identify or allocate words to events and activities. And there are rules for it. So events are noun plus past participle. For many native speakers, past participle might not mean much. But for everybody who did an IELTS test, knows exactly what a past participle is. So put noun plus past participle as events. And then activities, you start with the verb or the verb and go noun. It has not, and it doesn't say who, so it doesn't say the salesperson or Paul or Thomas. It goes noun plus past participle and verb plus noun. No articles. No articles. The first, capitalize the first word and have it short. Let's try to create a business process where you just allocate. So I want to test your knowledge on these symbols of events and activities. Draw the two process chains or the process models representing those two processes. So what symbols you have to put there? Yes, depends on where you are.
Is the reason why it's wrong because in between CBD and also
So, and
Okay, how do the business processes look like? We have two simple models. Hanger noticed it is good practice to write down the event outside the circle. I hadn't mentioned that before. So these events are underneath or outside the activities within the squares or the little boxes. And you see the difference between an end event and a start event. I'm sure there are no questions to it. Let me increase the level of difficultiness. And now you might really want to use the excellent free tutors here to help you with creating business process models for those two processes. Okay, you want a few more minutes? Are you at business process 2? Okay, then let me know when you're finished. You're finished. Then what are we drawing? Textbook needed. Again, everybody who says, I need a textbook, or what's the name of the person? Patrick wants a textbook. No, it needs to be noun and past participle. And then you have a number of activities. In the best case, all activities are activities that will be implemented in a new system. Here it's not the case, but always keep in mind, theoretically we model, not just for the sake of it, to represent the business process in an automated system. And then the second process about filling up a car, you start with car arrived and then you end with car refilled. These are all straight business processes where all activities happening sequential. But this is not how reality happens, because business processes are not always sequential. They can happen in parallel. And when they happen in parallel, there are two ways that can take place. One is that you have two alternatives and only one alternative is true. Example here, an item, a product is in stock or it's not. It can't be both. A printer is working, you can print something, or the printer is not working. Then you can't print. So it's only one of them. So they're mutually exclusive. And if they are concurrent, and that means both ways can take place at the same time, both paths, sequential flows, can happen at the same time, then you would capture them as a parallel concurrent ways. And that is when customer orders a product, the order is processed, and the invoice is sent out at the same time the product is sent out. So things happening at the same time. And how that is implemented is through gateways. And if you have exclusive paths where only one is possible, you model that with an X. And so now I killed the fun. So it goes either the first condition or the second condition. And you can have only one pass. And you close it. You close it, either one arm comes in or the other. This is not necessarily always required. You might have an opening of the conditions and then have them going directly in an activity. So the closing and XOR closing is not always required. So you see here, purchase order is received, you check stock, it's not available, or it is available, and then the order is processed, and you have two final events, two closing events. If you have both paths happening at the same time, you're splitting them via an AND gateway. The symbol is a plus, so not an X, it's a plus, and that means you show when the two paths start. Both paths take place at the same time, and you need to identify when both paths are closed and are joined together. And important here is you cannot leave away, you cannot ignore or not illustrate. So in other words, you always must have the plus in your model. That must be always included, not like with the X or where you can leave it out. So you need to identify which two processes need to be completed before you can start with the next activity. So you see here, you open it, either this option or that option, and you go directly into a plus. You send the invoice, you send the goods, and you're closing it. So these are the two activities that can happen in parallel, and then you have archiving the order and order fulfilled as the closing event. Another example, what it shows you here is that it can be more than 3 conditions happening at the same time. So yes, our examples all have been with 2. It is possible to have 3 concurrent paths or exclusive paths happening. The last exercise for today, the very expensive one, you're free to do at home. I would like you to do those two exercises to close off the business process management lectures. So start out, now you have gateways included, you need to include AND gateways, you need to include XOR gateways. Event car stolen, might think again, because when does the business process of insurance claim get triggered? When the claim is received. Claim received might be a better example, not when the car is stolen.
actually in here, not one. So we actually have to have an activity for the gateway. Oh, so this isn't in itself. This is just saying what happens after we get to the I get you. Right. Couldn't this one use links to so that could yeah. Which would be not the here. Yep. I get it. Okay, thank you.
So let's have a look at the solutions. What are our processes? Customer claim received, check value of claim. If it's smaller than 1,000, pay the claim. If it's larger than 1,000, review the claim. One student was kind enough to ask me, what are we going to do when it's exactly 1,000? So I will improve the slides for next year's student that if it's equal or smaller than 1,000, we will pay the claim, but nevertheless the exercise is correct in this way, that if it's larger than 1,000, the claim needs to be reviewed, so claim, review claim, and then you have an XOR decision of valid claim, invalid claim, and you pay. Please do not, and check your models, that you do not have paid claim twice. You should have it only once. So you need to link it back. So surely you have started with, now I'm cheating again because I'm tall but not a giant. You all started with this one and then went on to this, but this needs to be, if the decision is valid, then you have to go into pay claim. So don't go out here and say pay claim. It needs to go back in here. Because why would you have two AND events with the same meaning? That would then represent it in the software code twice. It's completely inefficient and it might crash, make your system crash at the end. So one. And here the process customer pay, and you have two things that are happening at the same time, making the coffee and preparing food. And important here, if you have an opening of a concurrent path, so with a plus, you need to have a closing plus. While here, you don't need to necessarily close the XOR. So the X doesn't need to be closed, but if you have a plus, you need to have a closing plus, because it needs to be very, very clear in the model what the activities are that all need to be finished before you can move on to the next activity. That's all for today. I have included here a much larger exercise. I encourage you to do it on your own. You will find next week the solutions to all the exercises and also to the last one. I thank you very much for your attention. This concludes the topic of business process management. We will start next week with the topic on developing information systems. That will ease you into your assignment. I strongly recommend you look at your assignment and start working on that. Thank you.